Welcome to She is Resilient, a podcast for women on their healing journeys who are ready to start living their most authentic and empowered lives outside of survival mode. I'm your host, Tatiana, trauma and somatic therapist, as well as a holistic coach, and I'm on a mission to help more women heal their nervous systems. Each week, me and my guests are going to get real and vulnerable about the experiences that led us to becoming the empowered and resilient women we are today. You'll leave this podcast with the skills, knowledge, and inspiration to start creating the life you deserve. Because if another woman can do it, so can you. Welcome back to another episode of She is Resilient. Today's episode is for you if you have been made to feel like you're the problem. But before we dive into the episode, I want to share a few changes that are happening to the podcast. So I don't know if it's because we're in Cancer season and Leo season starts tomorrow. Shout out to all the Leos. But I feel like I've been a little bit in my feels, and I feel like I've been craving more realness, more connection, more rawness. And so because of that, we're going to be making some slight, tiny changes to the podcast that I think are going to be for the better. So the first change that's going to happen is that instead of one episode a week starting in August, you will be getting 3 episodes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays, you're going to be getting just me, solo episodes like usual. Wednesdays are going to be guest episodes, and Fridays are going to be free coaching Fridays. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I've been doing free coaching Fridays for over a year now, and I've decided that I want to move to free coaching Fridays from Instagram and into this podcast. So how this will work is that you will submit your questions, and each week I will give you an in-depth response to your question, which is actually something that I couldn't do on Instagram. I mean, I could have, but it would just be way too many dots or Instagram stories. So that is one of the reasons why I'm moving it to my podcast, so that I can really go in depth and I can really give you the level of coaching that I want, so that you're not just getting like, a lame response, right? Like a short, simple response. Like when you ask me questions, I really want to answer them, and I want you to get the most out of this. So you will be able to submit your questions through the show notes after listening to each episode. So that's going to start in August. So that's change number 1, and you'll be getting more episodes your way. So that's change number 1. The second slight change that is going to happen is we're going to do less editing on the podcast. And so you probably haven't even noticed this, but I edit my podcast episodes. I mean, like most people edit their podcast episodes, but I have been craving this rawness. And so I've decided that I no longer want to edit the podcast, so that when you listen to these episodes, it can feel like we're in the room together and we're talking like normal human beings that stutter or take long pauses or make mistakes, because we're not robots. And I want to give us all permission, including myself, to just show up in our realness. And so maybe you'll notice starting in August, maybe in this episode, who knows, that the episodes seem less polished. So that's change number 2. And the last slight change to this podcast is that guest episodes are going to be much longer. And the main reason for this is because I truly want to sit down with my guests and have heart-to-hearts with them. And it's really hard to have a heart-to-heart when you're limited to 25 to 30 minutes. So get ready for longer guest episodes that will continue to highlight vulnerability and rawness. So, all of these changes are going to start in August, and the longer episodes will probably start around September. And this is only because I already recorded the guest episodes that will be coming out in August. So, that's why the longer guest episodes will be coming out sometime in September. So let me know what you think about these changes. Send me a DM on Instagram, or you can also email me. Just let me know what you think so I get a feel for how you're liking these changes. Okay, so that's it for the updates. So now let's dive into today's episode. So like I said earlier, this episode is for you if you have been made to feel like you're the problem. If you sometimes feel like you're the one losing it, or you've been gaslit, let me just start off by saying you are not the problem. And even though I may not know you or your specific situation, and side note, if I don't know you, I want to get to know you, so connect with me on Instagram so that we can chat more. But I don't need to know your situation to know that you're not the problem. And here's why. The reason I know this is because you're listening to this podcast. This tells me that you're on a healing journey to some level. This tells me that you have some level of self-awareness and you are willing to learn more so that you can continue to grow and become a better version of yourself. And those who are willing to change their lifestyles or receive a new perspective or learn something new to better themselves are usually not the problem. From my experience of being a therapist for 8 years, it's July 2024, so almost nine years. In my experience, the clients who blame themselves the most are actually the clients who are not the problem. And let me tell you, if you are the problem in a situation, if you're in the wrong, I will tell you the truth. If you know me if you've had me as a therapist, or if you've worked with me in some capacity, you know I am very honest with all of the clients that I work with. So I definitely would let you know if you're the problem or if you're in the wrong in some way. And also, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, nobody's perfect, right? We could all do better. I get that. But that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about you constantly blaming yourself for everything because others around you have gaslit you and have made you feel like you're in the wrong for feeling or thinking a certain way. And this is something that I am so absolutely passionate about because I've been there. I grew up in a household where my experiences were repeatedly invalidated, dismissed, and things were constantly turned around to make it seem like I was the problem. And I haven't felt this way in a really long time. But recently, I was reminded of what things used to be like growing up. And I wanted to talk about this topic more because I'm sure that I'm not the only one who has felt this way. I'm sure that I am not the only one who has been gaslit or invalidated or dismissed or made to feel like they're the problem. And now that I'm older and I've been able to heal my nervous system, I feel like I've grown the capacity to use my voice more and to advocate for myself in ways that I couldn't when I was younger. And I am also so beyond grateful that I now have a witness for some of these experiences, which is my husband. And even though he can't see exactly what it was like, he can only see snippets of what my childhood was like. he can now understand and validate my experiences even more, which truthfully means the absolute world to me, because I cannot tell you, and you can't see me, but as I'm talking about this, my eyes are starting to water, and I am getting emotional because, like I said, I am really passionate about this, and I, think about my own childhood and how little 5-year-old, 6-year-old Tati, or however old she was at that time, couldn't advocate for herself, right? And now I can, and now I can teach women how to do the same. But I can't tell you how many times I felt like I was losing my mind, like legit thought I was going bonkers because of the level of gaslighting and dismissing and invalidation. So if you grew up in a household like that, or if you're in a romantic relationship like this, I want you to know that you are not losing it. Your experiences are valid and real no matter what the facts are. And what I mean by that is that it's not a matter of the truth and who's right and who's wrong. It's a matter of validating your experience. So the way that you perceive and experience situations are always valid, and in a healthy relationship, your experiences are always going to be listened to and validated and understood. And so I'll give you an example. If you feel like nobody loves you, that feeling is valid. That experience is valid. Is that true? I imagine, I can take a guess that that is not true, that that is not factual, that nobody loves you. I don't think that's true. But just because it's not true doesn't mean that it's not valid. Okay, and so that's kind of what I mean when it's not a matter of is it true or not, who's right, who's wrong. It's a matter of whether the person or the people that you're interacting with can validate your experiences and your emotions and feelings in that moment. So even, let's say, if you are in the wrong, right, that doesn't give anyone an excuse to invalidate or dismiss your experiences or make you feel like you're the problem. It's not okay for someone to disrespect you and your experiences just because, let's say, you were wrong, right? In healthy relationships, we can have healthy communication. We can talk about things without making anybody feel bad, without hurting anybody. And so, if you are feeling this way, if you are being made to feel like you're the problem, then that's a sign that you're in an unhealthy relationship. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It can, but not always. Again, it can be family members. That's what it was like in my experience. It can be friendships. I've also experienced that. It can be work relationships, like with your boss or your coworker. And if you don't feel safe, heard, understood, seen, then it's time to leave that situation or relationship. And I also understand that it's easier said than done. So what I really want to encourage you to do is start reconnecting with yourself and your body. When you fully feel connected to yourself, you can be with your truth. You can truly understand that your emotions and your experiences are completely yours, and nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can tell you not to feel angry or sad or hurt. Nobody can tell you that your experience is wrong, because nobody's living in your body but you. So how could somebody else tell you that your experience is wrong? They're not in your body, right? Makes no sense. And when somebody tries to tell you how to feel or tries to invalidate your experience, that's really about them, not you. And I can understand that if this is something that you've experienced for a really long time, you can start believing that it is you. It can be really hard to shift that perspective and really start to understand that you're not the problem, right? And that's why I really want to encourage you to connect back to your body. When you connect to your body, you understand that you're not the problem. You understand that your experiences are completely yours. But when we try to logically think our way out of it, when we try to make sense of it in our minds, then you might get to the conclusion that you are the problem. And that's not true. That's your mind doing that, right? That's other people doing that. That's not your body. Your body holds that wisdom. Your body knows. When you connect to your body, you can always come back to the truth. And being reminded recently of how I used to feel when I was younger really ignited this fire in me. This wanting to spread even more awareness around healing and helping women use their voice and stand up for themselves. And this is a perfect example of using healthy anger and aggression, because anger isn't a bad thing. And to be honest, that's one of the emotions I've been feeling a lot in the past couple of weeks. I've been feeling angry, and maybe even a little bit more than that, maybe even rage. But I've been using these feelings to keep going, to set more boundaries, to help other women set more boundaries, to speak up when I see something that is wrong, to record this episode in this moment as I'm thinking about my experiences. I feel anger. But this feeling is what's helping me record this episode and spread this message to you. And that's really why I want to teach women how to set more boundaries. I want to help more women take up more space, to advocate for themselves, to use their voice when they need to. And in the next episode, I'm going to be talking more about how to hold multiple emotions at once, because if you've interacted with me in the past couple of weeks, you're probably thinking, Tatiana, you don't look like you're angry. And even on Instagram, right? Because when I record myself on Instagram, that's my true self in that moment. That's my genuine self. But in those moments, I don't feel angry, right? Probably when I've interacted with you, I don't feel angry, right? Because I truly am so privileged and grateful that I get to interact with truly inspiring and awesome women. I get to meet so many of you, and I don't feel angry when I'm interacting with you. But I think that's also the beauty of healing your nervous system, so that it has more flexibility, because when your nervous system has more flexibility, you can be with all of those emotions and still live your life without those emotions consuming you. So I can feel my anger. And even now, right, like when I was thinking about how I love interacting with all of you, I don't feel as angry anymore, right? That's the flexibility in my nervous system. I was angry one moment, and now I'm not. The anger shows up, the rage shows up, and then another moment, maybe I feel sad. And in another moment, I feel calm, and then happy, and then joy, and then I get to laugh, right? And that is the beauty of healing, right? You don't get stuck in these emotions. It doesn't consume your entire life. So that's what I want to continue to teach you as well. And if you want a little bit more on how to do that, again, working with me through somatic experiencing or coming to my free community can really help you build that safety in your nervous system and build that flexibility. So let's do a quick recap. So first, you are not the problem. That's the number one message that I want you to get from this episode. You are not the problem. If you're healing, you're in therapy, you're listening to this podcast, or you're trying to grow in some way, shape, or form, you are not the problem. Second, stand firm in your experiences. Nobody can tell you not to feel a particular emotion. That emotion is yours. Nobody can tell you that your experience is wrong. And lastly, if someone continues to dismiss your feelings, invalidate your experiences, and tell you that you're the problem, it's time to leave that situation or relationship. Actually, and one more thing, to stand firm in your experiences, come back into your body. Reconnect with your body. And if you want more on boundaries, I have content around that on my Instagram, or like I said, you can book a one-on-one somatic experiencing session with me so that we can really work together on a deeper level, so that you can finally take up that space, use your voice, and stand firm in your experiences. And one last thing before we wrap up this episode, before we say our goodbyes, I just want to share with you that something is coming in September. Save the date for September 9th. That is when you will find out what exactly this new offer is. So stay tuned for more information. I'm going to be, slowly telling you a little bit more and more as we get closer to September 9th. But all I want to say for now is that I'm really, really excited for this new offer, and you will definitely be able to learn how to take up space in this new offer. So stay tuned. I don't want to share too much. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you absolutely loved this episode, I would so appreciate it if you subscribed and left a review on Apple Podcast, or take a screenshot and share this episode on social media. Don't forget to tag me at tatiana.holistic.coach. The more nervous systems we reach, the more generational cycles we break, and the more we contribute to a kinder and safer world. And if you're looking for somatic healing services, send me a DM and I'd love to chat on how I can support you. I'll see you in the next episode.